Hey.
You almost caught me saying that.
Almost caught you talking about your nose.
Yep,
And y'all
everything's based on
don't
the
want to
nose.
hear about his nose, do you? I don't think so.
No, we're just trying to set the tone of the picture, not just the evening, but they both kind of coincide. Well, we're setting things up, getting things ready for another What Really Matters. And today we had talked to everybody about something that's happening in our life, so we thought we'd talk about it. And that happens to be grief over a loss of a loved one. And we certainly have had that affect our family this week, this last couple of weeks, this month, pretty much. And learned a lot from it.
Okay, you're going straight into this, but you haven't really introduced us
Yeah.
in what we're doing.
Before we get into that, I'd like to introduce my beautiful wife, Michelle. I'm Todd. And we're doing
Toddy.
What Really Matters again today, and topic is, again, grief over a lost loved one. So, what happened this week, this month, this portion? This episode may be emotionally charged, and, don't look away if a tear happens to fall. I don't think she's going to make it through, or me. See, we're starting with one.
I called you Hot Toddy because that's what your mom always called
That's
you.
what my mom called me. So
Different reasons. But, yeah, she always loved the fact that I called you that. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are talking tonight a little bit about grief and, losing a loved one. And it's really hard because you don't know what to expect. So we kind of want to talk a little bit about that. And we're going to share some things that we've learned because, I lost my mom 14 years ago. And many other people in my life that, all the way back to high school and even as a child. To me, it's like it's a part of life. Death is the sucky part of life. Mm-hmm. And so when you're having to grieve, it's a little difficult. But the most recent for us would be Todd's mom on April 18th had a massive stroke. And about a week and a half later, almost 2 weeks later, she passed away. So we just actually had her memorial service this past weekend in Austin with the family. And even with that, because it was such a different thing than what I was used to, we're even having to process those things.
Right.
Because it's different. And so that's kind of what we're going to talk about, is that just because it's different doesn't make it wrong. And everybody's going to grieve a little different. And we're going to try to help with some things that you can say and some things that you shouldn't say. Because trust me, there are things that are said that really tick you off when somebody says it to you. Just letting you know right now. It's not
Or
and so,
makes you recoil, or...
Well, yeah.
There's
all kinds
worse.
of different things. You kind of want to help somebody who's grieving, right? Isn't that kind of the situation? But we're also going to talk about being the one who's grieving, because when my mom passed, it was really easy for me to just fall apart. I had no problem with it. You know what I'm saying? I could fall apart, and it was extremely easy. But she was my world. Other than Todd and my kids.
Oh, whatever.
But seriously, she was, I talked to her daily. She was everything to me.
A very big part of it.
So for him to lose his mom has been a little bit different. So part of what we want to talk about is, everybody's going to grieve differently, and you can't push somebody to grieve the way you would. And so there's just a few things we want to cover with all that, because I even messed up with this one, and I'm going to have a tissue because I'll probably be crying a lot. Sorry. I'm a crier anyway, and then this is a tough situation, so I've got to turn this way because my leg is all crooked. Okay, we're going to talk about, we lost his mom recently.
Don't leave us now just because we're talking about a serious topic. This has got some good stuff.
And that's part of what we're going to talk about, because we've had a couple of people.
Come on, hang in there.
A couple of people, like if I tear up, they're like, oh my goodness, we can't stand here and talk to you anymore. And you're like, I'm just tearing up. I'm not like falling apart. But anyway,
Right.
So when you lose somebody, it doesn't have to be a parent. I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, parents are hard enough to lose. I've lost all my grandparents but one.
That's a natural order. That makes sense.
But still, when you're a kid and you grow up, you'll think they'll always be there. And then at some point, your grandparents start passing away. And then you get to a certain age where we were even talking about your parents are getting to being, they're in their 80s, health is declining. We've probably got about 5 years or so.
Try and set the stage.
We were trying to talk ourselves, to
until
get to that. Until
the curtain falls, you just...
But then when it still comes out of the blue because the health is still there, that, so for this one, it was more of a shock than, say, a loss is a loss no matter what. Even if somebody we have a friend of ours whose mom passed last week, and that mom had lung cancer, and she was sick for a while. And so, but it still hurts, even though they expected it and we didn't. Thanks, Josh. Love you. So what we want to talk about is it doesn't matter who it is that you've lost. If you loved them, it's going to hurt.
Right.
I do feel like, your parents are probably the hardest to lose next to your spouse and your child. Close friends and things like that are hard, but parent really cuts to the core. And the reason why is because they've helped make you who you are. They were there from your birth. Hopefully your parents were there for you. Whether they're perfect or not is not a big deal. And that's something we're going to get into as well. So,
they're directly a part of your soul.
Right.
Because they actually
and you're going to
created
feel a lot of things. I think we're actually already ready for you to be going on to right there. You're not ready for it, but I am, because I've already talked about it. You're going to go into all these emotions. You might be angry, you might be sad, you might feel lonely, you might be frustrated, you might feel helpless or hopeless or devastated. Those are big words that you're going to feel. Hey, Nancy.
Yeah. There's a big difference between the words on the page and the way that they feel inside. It's like a universe of expression that's there.
Well, and it's different for somebody who emotes everything and somebody who doesn't emote anything. And there is a difference. And so, even clearly through his mom's passing, I've been the more emotional one, which is, I felt guilty because I was more, I cried a lot more because that's who I am. That's my personality. And he didn't as much because that's not his personality. Right. So everybody's a little bit different on how you're going to do. Okay, keep going. Sorry.
Well, one of the other things, besides obviously all the obvious emotional relationships to it, is one that you might not think about, but when you're in the midst of it, you certainly do. And there's a loss of identity that occurs when a person loses their parent, in particular, because that person has done exactly like you said. They've generated who you are, good, bad, or indifferent. That doesn't matter. This person directly affected your life.
Right. And
coming to grips with those positive and negatives that are in there, because there are usually both.
Right.
Some outweigh others, depending on how you were raised. But you certainly have to confront those issues in order for you to have a healthy release of the mourning process, as well as putting the big picture together, because oftentimes you try and do it throughout your life and you don't really have a good way to do it until it really is forced upon you. Like I said, when that curtain comes down, you all of a sudden have to confront the things that you felt uncomfortable with dealing with all your life. And even if you're not ready for it, it's there in front of you. It's there for you to look at and touch and smell. And it's an issue that some people recoiled from it. Some people move towards it. Some people cry. Other people shut it off.
Some people work through it.
Yeah. That was, sometimes you're looking for you need more time, or you're not ready to deal with those issues. I know in our particular case, when I was dealing with my mother, that was one of the most significant things that happened while we were out of town.
Okay, so when she had her stroke, That's Saturday. So this was a Thursday night, and we get in, and on Saturday morning, we're leaving his sister's house to go to the hospital, and he's packing up his computer so he can go work at the hospital. And I yelled at him. I mean, I didn't just question it. I yelled at him and said, "I cannot believe you are going to work, with your mom having had a stroke and up at the hospital." And it was like when my kids were 2 and 3 years old, and you scolded them and they didn't really quite understand why, and they just stand there with their little toy and they just have the little tears that start. Well, that's what he did with his computer. And then it dawned on me that's what he needed to do to be able to process, because everybody processes differently. Me, I needed to see if I could be there to help people. Just
You're going to take away
talk.
my coping
I was going to
mechanism.
take away his coping. And so
I can ease into it when I'm ready.
Right. So we do it different, and everybody else is going to do it different. All of his siblings processed it differently, still processing differently.
Right.
There's not a right or wrong way, and that's the nice part of it, is because everybody gets to do it on their own. And some may have cried a lot, and some may not cry or shed one tear. But that's all of it's okay, and that's the part we're trying to talk about tonight. So he's talking about that you lost your identity when your parent passes away, and that is so clearly one of the things that hit home with him, because when I said it to him, that's when he finally really opened up and realized that is how it kind of affected me, but I didn't know it until you said those words when we were discussing it.
What words were that?
That you've lost your identity because your mom's not here. When I said that to you, that's when you kind of started being able to realize, yes, there's an effect that, I need to kind of acknowledge. I mean, but then you went right back into working. We happened to be at the office when I was talking to you about it. So when you work together, you kind of just blend it all. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so you have to follow your partner's lead. If it's a friend, whoever you're with that's grieving. Right now we're using spouses. Well, yeah, these are tips. These are the tips we're going to talk about
right now.
So you're going to help your spouse. Right now we're talking about helping your spouse through it, because he needed to be there for me when I lost my mom. I'm there for him when he lost his mom. And although technically he seems to be more for me through his mom's passing, even because it's just the way we process differently. And that's okay. So you follow your partner's lead. Whatever the thing is that they need to do, that's what you do. If they want to talk about it, then you sit and listen and let them talk about it. If they need space, then you give them space. See, I didn't know how to give him space because I wanted him to start processing it. And
you gave me space once I gave you
once
a tear.
I realized I was causing more damage. Right, I broke him. I realized, let me, So then you just start off with, babe, what do you need from me? What do you want from me? And usually your thing is, I don't know. Once I know, then I can tell you that this is what I want. But you need to make sure you communicate. I don't know usually means
leave me alone.
But you communicate so that each day you can talk a little bit about it.
Right.
One of the things that I did was we started going through photos, because I wanted to find photos of Grandma Wyatt with the kids. It's very healing for me to find the family photos to look through, and he did not want to do that.
Each photo is ripping a Band-Aid off,
and he did not. And but I would give him a photo, especially if it was a good one, of him and our kids. But some of the most precious ones were the ones of him his mom holding him as a baby. When he was, I don't even know how old you were. You were little, but one of them, you're laughing, just so cute. And so, trying to do that kind of helps him. But it was just a little bit each day. It wasn't like, here's a photo album. You have to go, do this right now.
I wish I could turn the camera. There's...
I have all of my
boxes
tubs.
over there.
Yes.
There's another one there. There's two over there.
Right.
Because there's one down there.
Well, because what I want to do is make my kids photo albums of them with their grandparents, because my kids were blessed to know their great-grandparents as well as their grandparents, and I've got photos of them with all of them, and I feel like that one of the things that they need to have in their position is maybe a little small scrapbook of that. And so that helps them, because this was hard on our kids, because when my mom died, that was 14 years ago. My youngest son was only 8. The oldest son was only 14. So they've gone a long time without a,
Right.
It's a big difference
tragic
to have.
For a variety of reasons. I was too young for her mother to have passed.
Right, but I mean, but this time your mom's passing was the big one for them, because this was the grandma they had known for a long time.
Right.
So anyway,
even though it was still timely in the course of nature, we also learned in this particular process that don't try to fix their problem. If guys, like when she had her mother pass, she told me, that's one thing she's always been really great about, is expressing what she needs or telling me how she's thinking about the situation. All the great advice we give you, 98% of it comes from over here. I just let you know how well it works from my particular
or how
side.
well it doesn't work, because it doesn't always work.
But communication is almost always the answer.
Always.
There are times when the person doesn't want to communicate, which is what we were talking about a minute ago, and that's like, okay, delay it for a while and then ease into it. But communication always brings breakthrough. Breakthrough seldom happens in silence. But when someone's expressing to you a loss, you can't change the loss. You can't bring anybody back. You can't change the event.
Yeah, there's no fixing that.
The way that you handle the situation is, don't approach it a guy. Most guys are going to approach a situation. If you're telling me about a problem, I'm seeing something that needs to be fixed.
Right.
And she was very quick to point out to me early on, I don't need you to fix it. I need you to do something that she didn't think was extraordinary, but for me it's an extraordinarily unnatural thing for me to just sit and listen. I don't have to say or do anything, but actively listen. What the heck does that mean? I mean, for most men, actively listening means doing something. No, that's wrong. You don't actively fix anything. You actively talk to them and encourage the conversation to go where they're leading. It's one of those times when a guy's actually not supposed to lead. You follow that particular conversation.
Which leads me to the fact that I think one of the hard part for him on this one was he can't fix it.
Can't fix it.
And that makes it hard for him. And so he doesn't know how to process. For me, at least when it was my mom passing, he knew that he could hold me, he could, buy the flowers, do the things, whatever it was that I needed. But for him,
oh my gosh, let me tell you, here's the big, huge thing I was not prepared for. And I can tell you, no one's ever expressed it or explained it in this way.
Hey, Megan.
I was shocked to find, you hear people talk about being in a fog. That's not that is certainly not going to begin to express my concern. My brain was trying to solve this problem from every fiber of my brain, from one side to the other. Rapid fire in my brain continuously, and when you have every neuron in your brain firing back and forth in every direction, it creates a traffic jam in your brain. And it's perceived in your brain like a fog. I mean, this is the first time I actually understood the fog. You can't see your way through to the solution because there's so many problem-solving solutions underway.
There was no solution for what you were trying to fix in your brain.
I actually got concerned about my mental welfare because the most prized possession, second to you, is my brain. If I lose the ability to function in here, that's it. It's over. That is, everyone has different things. For me, that's where that goes. I wasn't able to, I was probably functioning at 50%.
And I had to keep telling him, it's okay. It's going to get better. And you need to process. And I can't tell you how to process, but you're going to have to process. This is when we started talking about, this is when I started telling him, You've lost your identity. Part of that is gone. You don't know how to do this. You can't fix it. And all you've done is work. And you don't even want to think about, your childhood with your mom and all the things because you're trying to put it all off so you don't have to process it. But
Sure.
once I started just slowly generating some pictures for him to look at, talking about the precious moments that we had with her, some of my favorite memories with her. We talked about some of the things that we didn't like,
Sure.
which y'all need to understand.
Get
it's
real,
okay.
people. Get real.
People are people. They are not perfect. Mm-hmm. And, my kids should feel free when I pass to say, I loved my mom. This is everything she did for me. This is all the awesome things. I really could have stood not having this part, but all the rest of it was great. You know what I mean? So be real. And so that was one of the things.
Yeah,
that I
balance happens, positive and negative. You
I
don't
think
ever
that
get a
helped
balance if
him.
you're all on one side
He started
or the other.
realizing, and the other thing that I did was take it back to his childhood. So, which I think kind of helped put it in a little bit of perspective. When he was a child, 3 or 4 years old, and his mom took him to daycare, he hated daycare, and he just cried. He was one of those brats, that just cried all freaking day because mommy left him at daycare.
I was fine, just leave me alone.
And
I'll
so,
just cry in the corner.
But that, I was trying to explain to him, I said, that's who you are right now. You feel like your mom has just left you, And once he started taking that in, he was able to start processing some of the stuff, and the fog started lifting. But I couldn't really push it on him. I just had to gently, here you go. Now, mind you, this has only been, it's 2 weeks ago today that she passed.
Fresh.
So we're not talking, there's no way that either one of us has processed this.
Sure.
We're at the very beginning.
Beginning praise. But I can tell you, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I can tell you one of the things that helped a lot was you explained to me about allowing me to have process to go through it and needing to go through it. You can only postpone it so long, but you allowed me a lot of different avenues into finding my way as opposed to your way.
Right.
And
because my way is not going to work for you.
And when she wanted to take that computer away, I actually found myself stupefied.
That was a bad thing I was doing that day.
I literally sat there and was like, if you're going to be upset because I'm bringing the only coping mechanism I have with me, and that's going to be gone, and you're going to force me to hit this straight on, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm not ready yet. I still have work I need to do.
Now, mind you, this is what at the very beginning when she was still had hope. That was the Saturday right after the stroke. So that wasn't even after she passed.
Yeah,
she passed away 2 weeks ago today.
Yeah,
we're still very, very
deep
fresh
in the middle of events
this is all
unfolding.
Just starting, but there's a few things that we've gone through even in the last couple of weeks that we wanted to share with y'all that has been good and things that have been not so good. And the reason why we're trying to share this is
fresh.
to help others.
It's on our
while
mind.
It's fresh and while it's on our mind, to help people help other people when they're grieving.
Yes.
Here's the deal.
At the end,
we've got to do these
at the
2
end,
more points.
We'll
I'm going to
through
give you a
them all.
bunch of things that you can say. It's not a bunch. There's things that you can say and things that you shouldn't say and things that you can do and things that you cannot do to hurt people. Yes, Nancy, I do. I thank God that we have strong partners to go through this part of life with. And I'm going to tell you the same thing I told somebody at the office, and that is, probably everybody I've ever talked to, and this is probably not the proper way to say it, but y'all are just going to have to forgive me. But, this part of life sucks. I hate this part. I hate having to go through the loss of somebody that you love, and this is where I'll cry. This part sucks. I hate it. I hate it. I hated losing my mom. I hate losing his mom. I don't like it. There's nothing we can do about it because it is part of life, and we have to process and move forward. This part sucks. There's nothing you can do. I'm not going to make it into a big drama thing. I'm not going to do whatever. But I hate this part.
Everyone is
I
going
hate
to go
this
through
part.
it. Everyone shares in this.
Right. And there's not anyone in life that's not going to be affected. You're going to lose somebody at some point. That's part of life. Don't have a timeline in mind for your own grief.
Yeah.
Or for someone else's
Let
grief.
alone others.
Because let me tell you something. My mom passed 14 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I still have my times that it bothers me. There are times I still wished I had her
Sure.
to call. It not like when it first happened, of course, but still, I mean, I don't think you ever really stop grieving the person that you loved because they are who you are. But don't even put yourself on a timeline. Like for me, because I tear up, which you're watching now. Just having a conversation, I have to stop because I'm going to cry, but I'm not really going to cry, if that makes sense. I just tear up, but I have to stop for a minute.
Oh my goodness, people. If you're with somebody, I mean, we have somebody that we know that if a tear starts to whelp up in your eyes, that person's like fleeing as fast. They're panicking. They're running out of the room.
I'm going to give you 2 examples, though. we were talking about this process. In fact, it was before she passed. We were just talking about the things during the hospital stay. Mm-hmm. We came home the Sunday before she passed because we didn't know for sure how long it was going to be, and we had already been gone for a week and a half, and we gave up the Vegas trip that we had planned. You always kind of feel slighted and whatever, and it sounds selfish, but we didn't get to go to Vegas. But who would have gone to Vegas with their mom in the hospital with a stroke? You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like you feel slighted, but you don't, because who would have gone?
Right.
That's something we can do another time. So when we come back early,
Vegas is still
our
there
vacation
today.
Time was spent in a hospital. When we came back, we're telling the story.
Yeah.
And I'm talking to another gentleman, and I teared up a little bit. Now, I'm not crying. I just teared up and stopped talking for a second. And then he's like bolting. He's not going to sit there and listen. He's totally afraid I'm going to cry.
He's like, I'm out of here.
Which made me
Frustrated.
Laugh and feel sorry for him all at the same time because, But then a couple of days later, we were at my sister's house. And it was Todd and I and her in her office, and we were talking, and I was having a conversation, and it wasn't even about his mom or being at the hospital. I mean, it was completely different, but whatever I said triggered
a significant
event with his mom. And I'm probably going to do this again, and I'm okay with that because that's who I am.
It doesn't bother me.
I teared up, and did exactly what I'm doing right now. And then I said, just give me a minute. And I stopped, and she goes, it's okay, Michelle. You just do what you need to. It's okay.
And that gave me,
but that gave me time to recoup, so to speak. Even though I wasn't really going to totally lose it, but it still just triggered that loss. And that's the thing. When you lose somebody, there's going to be things that happen that you don't have a clue as to why you just teared up. Because with that conversation, there was nothing in there that should have made it happen.
But your sister's response was
perfect.
Classically spot on.
Yes.
It validated your experience.
Yes.
It's legitimate. It's real. You can't fight it. And it recognizes that it's natural, and that everyone should experience it in some fashion, some way like this, and allows you to just take a moment, not feel ashamed, not feel rushed, not feel like someone thinks less of you. It just is. It is a moment in time. It was a perfect flash moment of reality. Take your moment.
And it was the most genuine,
do what you need to
that
do,
helped me.
and everything moved on. Boom, no problem.
Oh, well, see, Nancy, that's just what we do. I think there are some people who don't do any of the tearing up. You haven't teared up a whole lot, except, now privately you do, but you might not through this whole thing tonight. His dad, through this whole process, never teared up, except when we went to leave and I was hugging him goodbye, and he did kind of then at that point. Everybody's different.
I'm not setting a stage.
Different.
I won't let you see me cry. I do fight internally to try and prevent it. It's a natural thing.
Because men ain't supposed to cry.
Okay,
so you also want to help your partner keep the the parents or, lost a loved one, friend, whoever it is that's passed. We're talking about moms right now because I lost mine and he's lost his recently. But you want to help keep the memory alive. So there's a few things that we were able to do. That's one of the reasons why I've got tubs and tubs of pictures out. I wanted to get out his albums that his mom made for him from when he was a child all the way through. We went through those that showed him from the infant all the way up to getting married, probably.
Right.
Including your prom and your high school and, all the things. But it showed how involved his mom was in his life. And then there were some memories that we got to see, especially Saturday night at the memorial service where there was a video. And there's all kinds of things about his mom that most of us didn't know because they didn't ever really share about their past. The parents didn't do a lot of sharing about their past. So, I didn't know she played volleyball and all the different things that they had in the pictures.
Me either.
And I didn't know she was a Girl Scout,
should have,
whatever person that led the Girl Scouts and took the kids camping and did all the stuff. Those are things I didn't know because they didn't really talk about all that. We only talked, we didn't talk about their past per se. So there was a lot of photos. So bringing all of that up, it helps the grieving process because you're like, wow. Well, that was a lot of fun. This was great. There was this, wow, Mom did so much. I didn't know, and it really kind of helps getting them to be able to get through the grieving process by showing the pictures and just talking about.
There's a couple other things that really helped with it that, having done it my way, I would have never gotten there. But because of the process she's doing, you recognize a few things right off the bat. When you're going through this, I realized how much time, energy, and passion my mother put into some of the books that she had given us. A lot of people don't have that.
Right.
So you recognize right away, I have been gifted a mother and a relationship and a family that granted me love and emotions and a family life that so many people have not had or have not had and wish that they had. Ironically, in keeping with that, so there's a sense of gratitude. When you look at it, you're like, wow, look at how much, do you know how much time it takes for you to generate those books?
And she did that times 4 for for each child.
I'm looking at these books, and they're special. Go look at it. If you go online, look at what people do for these things.
I posted pictures.
She totally did it with these little captions underneath each one of these different
handwritten perfectly. There's no way I can do that. Mine's
date
gonna be printed.
And time and hours, hundreds, thousands. It just went on. You're
Mine's
like,
gonna
oh my
be
God.
Computer generated hand note, not hand. Well, a few of them will be hand.
It's just amazing. Now, a lot of that has to do with the organizational methodologies of the person who's doing it. Other people might not have it quite so organized.
So here's
but
the
it's
deal.
all there.
My tubs are bags of photos all shoved in, and I'm going to have to sit down and and that's part of what
it's
we've been doing.
Pandemonium now, but it needs to become structured. But in the process, you recognize these moments. There's something in that moment when I saw these things in there that stuck in my mind. Was it today we went? No, yesterday we went to the doctor. Yesterday we went to the eye doctor. We're sitting there. That's normal. I don't know what day it is any time of the week. It doesn't matter whether grief or not. The other day, and that means anything between yesterday and a month ago.
Or since the day he was
born. Or a
born.
year ago, yeah. We were sitting there in the waiting room, and of all things, Steve Harvey's on. And
oh my goodness, that was a good one too.
It was a really good show. And you're thinking to yourself, how timely is it that this particular show is on? And in there, one of the lessons that was learned, there's a whole bunch of stuff I could go into about how God set us in this chair at this moment, at that location.
But just find the one thing.
And you felt that moment was gratitude. The idea of growing through, how you grow through something. And this was a motivational seminar for people without dads.
Or dads that were losers.
Doesn't matter, dads, moms, whatever. But you're watching this thing, and particularly it was focused on dads, so it was a little different than moms. But you move your way through a difficult situation or a mourning process or a major milestone in your life by having an attitude of gratitude. I didn't mean to rhyme it. It just happens. And the process was when you move beyond yourself and you recognize the sacrifice, the love, the time, the devotion, the care that another person has granted on you, that's the beginning of healing, positive healing. That is where you start to find, as I described to her, new folders to put in your database for you to store all this information. Up until then, you're just throwing stuff on your desktop, in your mind. You're just throwing it out there. And finally you figured out gratitude is the organizational process for finding your way. It was for me. It won't be necessarily for you. But that gratitude of realizing that person, now not everybody is going to be fortunate enough to have the gratitude because it might not have been a good situation. And I recognize that.
But we're just talking about whoever they lose. And it may not be their parents, because if their parents were losers and didn't hang around, somebody else was there for them.
Even it's nothing more than the gratitude of the time you had with that person.
Right.
That grow in your life and make you somebody more special than you ever were before.
Right. And you have to realize that it's okay to acknowledge that you're hurting, because a lot of people don't want to acknowledge it. Some people, it takes a while for this stuff to go. I know the whole first year, and I'm going to tell you, okay, here'll be another teary thing that I'm going to do.
No kidding.
Yep. There was an Easter that we were having with the family at our house, and this is after my mom died. And I have a big yellow platter that...
You want me to go get it?
No. That my mom served like our Sunday lunches, the roast and potatoes and stuff on. It was a big one. It was a big platter. And so I went to go find it to put food on it for Easter, and I couldn't find it anywhere. And I thought, oh my God, one of my kids broke it.
Sheer horror.
And I literally fell to the floor because I thought this platter was gone. That was what represented my mom for me at that moment. And then I realized I had already put the ham and stuff on it and was using it, and then I was all relieved. My whole point is, you don't know what it is that's going to bother you with his, or trigger that emotion. With his mom, 2 weeks ago when she passed away, that night, I got a Words with Friends notification. Mm-hmm. And we played Words with Friends with Mom constantly. Yep. She played 100 games. She played everybody all the time. As many games as you would play with her. She would have 5 or 10 games going with you if you would do it with her. Mm-hmm. And we all did, because we were like, it helps her brain, it helps keep her active, and whatever.
That's how I stayed in contact.
And that's and then you talk to her through the messaging and all of this stuff. So, we could tell we knew exactly when she had the stroke based on the last time she played Words with Friends with us. And so, throughout the process of the stroke, it would say, look who's back on Words with Friends. And it would say, Ruth Ann Wyatt. And then it would say, your match of the day is Ruth Ann Wyatt. And at that point, she was still in the hospital, so we still weren't sure which way it was going to go.
Right.
So we were just kind of able to laugh that off.
Right.
But on the day that she died, that night, about 8:30, we were headed to the bedroom, because let me tell you something. Oh, we have got to get into this too. I'll tell you all about that in a minute. But we were exhausted.
You don't know exhaustion.
And you don't know exhaustion until you've gone through this. And so, I've been exhausted. I've had newborns. I've had puppies. I've had illnesses. I've got all the stuff. But this takes the cake. Puppies keep you up at night too. So, they cry.
Puppies. She's had puppies. She didn't physically have puppies.
Talking about puppies that cry at night. Anyway, I got a Words with Friends notification. We were walking to the room, and my phone dinged, and that's what it was. And it didn't have her name or anything, because it wasn't her. But it took me out. You were standing there. Mm-hmm. I lost it.
She just stood there and just dropped her arms down. And
I lost it. And because I would never get another one from her. And it hit me hard. And so what I want you to know is, you will never know what the little things are that's going to cause you, but it's okay. just let the tears kind of come up. If you're by yourself or at home or where it's not a big deal, let the tears flow. If you're at the office like I am, then you kind of hold it back if you can, or go to the restroom or whatever. But don't beat yourself up, because it's going to happen for the rest of your life. You want to know why? You love that person.
Right.
And you miss them. And your heart is trying to figure out how to deal with their loss. So your tears come. The other thing I was going to say is you need to realize you are exhausted. And you do need more rest during this time. We sat at a hospital for a week and a half.
Brutal.
I sat there for 18 hours, 18 hours a day.
Yeah, you took
8
the
at night to noon for several days. Well, everybody participated, but I tried to take on a lot so they could work, because we were on vacation. So I was trying to help do that. But everybody through this process, I mean, you're exhausted. You're trying to work. You're living at this hospital. Then when it all happens and she does pass, you're kind of relieved because there's an answer, and yet you're not relieved because it's the wrong answer, so to speak.
Right.
And then you're having, you might have trouble sleeping, or you're dreaming, because that's what I do. I dream a ton right now. And I have been. And in fact, when she was in the hospital, I couldn't sleep, and he hated it. Because I would come home at noon and I would try to sleep so I could go back to the hospital at 8.
I was trying to get work done.
And I kept...
I had it all planned out, and you're not cooperating at all.
I kept dreaming, and I was dreaming of her dying. I was dreaming of my mom dying. And my mom had a stroke just like his mom. Only my mom was only 62. His mom was 82. There was, but it was kind of like reliving all of this stuff. So you don't realize how exhausted you are. I'm just telling you, it's and even now it's like, so this weekend we go to Austin and we're doing the memorial service, and we spent the weekend with the family. Then Sunday, which is Mother's Day, we drove to Fort Worth to be with our kids there. And I'm like, I can't work on Monday, so let's just stay in Fort Worth. I'm tired. I'm just so freaking tired. Seriously.
The reason why we say all that is
I'm trying to let you know that's
forgive yourself.
Yes, when you're tired.
Forgive yourself for feeling overwhelmed. Allow that. It's natural.
Well, understand it's a part of the process.
You're not going to be able to fight it. Understand
so
it's coming.
Here.
It's coming. For most people, it comes in some form like that. There's no way you cannot have a cajillion thoughts and not run your energy level in your body down. So it's natural. So when you start to feel overwhelmed, that's normal. It's not like you're weak. It's not like you're over emotional. It's not. Everyone, the guys, women, everybody. I was shocked at things that were triggering me. I hate using the word trigger because it's... But I just like using, express myself in a that way. But I was shocked that even the little things for me were making me feel differently than I ordinarily would, or lose that control that we would like to have over our lives. And that's what a lot of the battle is. We're saying, forgive yourself, allow yourself to do that. There's nothing to forgive. Just allow it to happen.
I'm exhausted.
I mean, I can tell you, one of the things that she allowed me, kept opening the door, and I didn't really appreciate the door until later, which was, you're not emoting properly. You should probably allow yourself to cry or whatnot. For the first 2 days we were there, she was dumbfounded by the fact that there was Zippo coming from me. She started to be worried that I was going to turn the whole thing off.
If you want to do that, the night we got the call about the stroke, you weren't even going to go to Austin.
Right. And it's like,
so
she'll
that's
be fine.
what
We'll just
I
go
was
whatever.
like. Yeah, he was in his...
Can I just come in the morning? Is she really going to die tonight? Okay, no, she's not. All right, we'll see you at 6 a.m. Okay. I was just gone to bed. I literally just sat in bed.
We went.
I was
letting y'all know.
Terrible son, but I don't beat myself up for that, because to me that was pretty natural. But the fact of the matter is, I recognize that I've swallowed emotions repeatedly. Part of it's part of the manly nonsense. I'm not going to let this come out. Other part of it is I don't want to do it now. I want to do it when I'm ready for it. Another part of it is I just don't want to do it, period. So eventually one of the things that really helped a lot was the permission from her to do it whenever I was ready for it. Doesn't matter if she's there or not there. I happened to be, in this particular case, granted by God the ability to be by myself for a period of time.
I was getting blue nails done for his mama.
And it was the first time in this entire process of a week and a half, 2 weeks, week and a half, that I was alone for a couple of hours. And who calls me? What really matters? Who calls me? But God's representative, my pastor, calls me. I look down at my phone. What do I have? I'm sitting here and it's totally quiet. I'm trying to ignore everything. I'm just like, I just want to ignore everything and not think about it for a while. And God says, nope, I think I'm going to make you think about this right now. And I look down. My pastor's on the phone. Gee, I can't imagine what he wants. So I'm like, all right. I actually thought about not answering it. I was like, nope, not going to do it. I actually did decide. It was on the third ring.
And he usually doesn't answer his phone or text for anybody, anywhere,
It was
anyhow.
on the third ring, and I said, I'm not going to let this go to voicemail. That is just too rude. I'll just do it. I'm just going to be obedient in this particular case. And so I turned the TV off, pushed the button, and there he is. And he starts to talk to me. We had a pleasant conversation. I kept it together through 75% of it, and then 75% of the way through, I kind of swallowed a few words, and he's like, hello, are you there? And I'm like, all right, give me a minute. All right, we're good. All right, and then we finished up the conversation. It was just a gentle acknowledgement from him, just like it was a typical pastoral call. It wasn't anything particularly special about it, except that it gave permission for you to be a human being.
Right.
And express yourself. And when I hung up that phone, I cried like I've never cried in my entire life. No one needed to be here.
Right.
I almost got scared. In fact, I probably cut it short because I got scared.
So how long did you cry?
It wasn't long. 3 minutes, 4.
I had a real breakthrough. I cried. I cried so much. I cried so much, Michelle. I cried. You don't even know. Well, it's probably for 2 minutes, 2 whole minutes. Maybe 5 minutes.
Maybe not, wasn't even that long. 3, 4 minutes. It felt like eternity. But
it's all he needed.
It was,
and that's fine.
Such a great release of the last couple of weeks.
The big thing is to feel the release of the pressure.
It was
Okay,
like you could almost see it coming out of me, a little bit like the Green Mile. All this stuff coming out. But it was such a great release. Now, the point of that whole thing was give yourself permission. Be a human being.
Right.
Break down. Be real. Be honest. Share yourself. Just let God in. What I was basically doing was letting out all the negative stuff that I was trying to swallow and allowing the joy of God to come in and flush all that stuff out and find joy. You can see joy. You might not have it right now, but you know it's there. You can see it. It's coming up.
He had put up a wall even with God.
Yeah, I mean, it's just put everything away.
All this. Okay, so I want to get onto this because we're probably we need to end this soon. There's so much about going through a loved one that you lose, especially when you do have to go sit in the hospital for a bit before it has a decision, has an ending one way or the other. We prayed for no suffering.
Right. We did have to be part of that decision process. It wasn't cast on us. We had to actively make a decision as a group.
We did. We, Dad got all the kids and said, what do we do? And we all were like, it's time.
Right.
Because it was time. There wasn't really any hope as far as that goes. But so Todd and I prayed for no struggling, no suffering. When we got there, most of his family are not Christians. They're not saved. Mm-hmm. And but his mom was. And she had gone and raised her kids in a Methodist church and all this good stuff. So when we got there, she could still see, she couldn't talk to us, but she was definitely responding to us And so we were the only ones there. We'd sent everybody home and stayed the first night, well, several nights, but the first night for sure. And we just basically did the prayer, and she couldn't speak, but we told her, we know that God can hear you. Just think the thoughts and, whatever. So we did a prayer, and we prayed for healing, but more than anything, we prayed for no suffering. I wasn't real sure, it's one of those things that's hard to say, well, God, I want her healed, but I do, and I do want her healed. I wanted her healed completely, though. I didn't want her to be left with anything. So the clearest way for me to pray was I didn't want any suffering. I didn't want her to suffer. Whatever God wanted to make of that, that's between him and her. They needed to have that little conversation.
Right.
So that's how we chose to pray.
We were cognizant of double-mindedness, that we were trying to make sure that we prayed in a way consistent with God's will.
Right.
We didn't want to cast our thoughts on God's will, double-mindedness, and giving two different misleading directions to go.
Well, you can't say either heal her or take her home. That's your double-mindedness.
Yeah.
No suffering, that's God's call. So anyway, here's we're going to do the things to say to somebody in grief and the things not to say to somebody in grief, and then that are grieving. And let me tell you something. Oh, there's one of these. I can't believe that you took the one that I wanted to talk about, and you did it on purpose because it ticked me off.
You're going to chime in anyway.
Oh, I will. When he gets to it, you just wait.
All right. What are the best things to say to someone in grief?
Best things to say to someone who is grieving.
Yes.
I'm sorry for your loss. That's the standard. Everybody says it, and everybody can respond with a thank you,
It's safe.
It's safe. I wished I had the right words. Just know I care. There are no right words to say. So I'm sorry for your loss. I'm praying for you. That's about as good as you can get. If you know how, here's the thing. You might
the careful part.
The number 3 is, I don't know how you feel, but I'm here to help in any way I can. I know how he feels because I lost my mom. Mm-hmm. But I don't know how he feels.
Because I have a uniquely separate relationship with my mother.
Right. So I can't say I know how you feel. I lost my mom. And there's 2 things about that. One is I'm not him and don't have that relationship. So I don't really know how he feels. I know how I felt when I lost my mom. And if I say I know how you feel because I lost my mom, I've now made it about me and taken the focus off of him when he's the one who just lost his mom. So you kind of have to be careful with that.
Yep.
So it's better to just I really don't understand what you're feeling, but I'm here for you. I'll just sit. The other thing is, just sit with them. Let them be quiet. We watched, oh my gosh, what is that stupid show you watch at night?
Which one?
Lost in Space?
Yeah,
Will Robinson?
The original
Holy
series.
Cow. Okay.
The 1962 series.
Right now, that's our bedtime show, and it started really because of this.
She hates to Dr. Smith.
No, I do. But so the reason why it's okay for us to watch that, though, is because it takes his mind. It's what was used to take his mind off of this. And I just sit there with him and hold his hand and whatever and watch that.
It's actually a childhood show I watched.
Right. So it takes him back to his childhood, thinking about mom. So you say, you and your loved one will be in my thoughts and prayers. Mm-hmm. My favorite memory of your loved one is, if you have a favorite memory of that person, like for him, I do this a lot because, well, I talk a lot, as y'all know.
No kidding.
I do. And I'll be like, oh, but it's always like things just hit me out of the blue. I was texting with your sister about flowers, and then all of a sudden this big memory with his mom comes up, and I'm like, ah! And then I have to stop, and then I have to talk about the memory. He's not doing that so much, but I am. We process differently. But share your memories, because the memories are great. I'm just a phone call away.
That's just a verbal photograph, by the way.
It is.
Yeah.
You can say I'm always just a phone call away, because sometimes people need to know that. Well, that's not even a true statement, Alita.
They don't know what they say.
They don't, because that's not even...
What did they say?
I'm sorry. I always hated God doesn't give you more than you can handle. The truth is, God gives you the strength to get through the things that life throws at you. And losing someone...
in actuality, God always gives you things you can't handle. That's how He gets
That's
you
how
through.
He gets you to trust Him to get you through it. You are going to have things that you cannot handle on your own.
On purpose.
And this is my cousin who commented that, and I'm going to tell you, because with her, she lost a child. And I'm telling you now, the only thing that is worse than losing your parents is going to be losing your spouse or your child. Losing your child is the worst thing.
It's the most irrational thing to ever happen.
I can't even begin to comprehend it. So when you go through that, you do have to, you're either going to turn away from God and hate Him, or you're going to turn to God and trust Him. Because that's a very huge process you have to go through. So you tell somebody, and you might want to just hug somebody. Yeah, I know. And it was, and I'm sorry you heard it a lot. These are the things that it's like people need to think before they speak. That's
why we're making the list here.
That's why we're trying to help people. Give them a hug.
See, it still affects you to this day, and that's what we're trying to talk about.
But it does.
Yes.
And because she's never going to stop grieving, and I know that, Alita, you're not. And it's there. That's just a dumb thing to have said to somebody going through that. We all need help at times like this. I'm here for you. I'm usually up early or late. If you need anything, give me a call. Just say nothing and be with that person.
There you go.
Because here's the deal.
There you go.
The best thing you can do is, offer to pray, cook them a meal, drop it off with a card. I will tell you this. I had two people, one that absolutely shocked me, texted me every few days through this whole process. How are y'all doing? Is everything okay? And she doesn't even live down here close to us. But it meant the world that she thought of us. And it wasn't anything other than, are you doing okay? Because there's nothing she was going to be able to do. She just wanted an update. And it meant a lot to me.
Connecting.
And then I have another friend that I go to church with that I've known for, 15 years. And she has made sure that she checks on me. And she always ends her text with, I love you. And she's come to my Facebook post, and I'll probably cry and, make sure I know that she loves me. And the reality is she's not doing anything special in the sense of,
Sure she is.
Well, she is, but that's my point. It's just a small token. She doesn't even know that just having the words, I love you, she's not even saying, I'm here for you, how are you doing? None of the stuff that goes with it. It's just, I want you to know I love you today. And that's awesome to have when you're going through something like this, because you kind of feel like you've lost, the person that you lost that you loved, they loved you, and you lost that love, So to hear somebody say, I love you, kind of feels that tank a little.
Here's the irony. Before we even finish the list, we're going to do
the worst. Those are all the worst things to do.
To say are next. But before I get to that, before we close it out.
Well, and Alita's thing needs to be on this list, which is not
here.
It
is. The thing I want to point out right now before we get to the worst things to say is the most important things that people remember is not what people say. It's what they do. If you're with that person, a simple gesture of touching, holding their hand, embracing them, or just being in the presence with them and allowing them to be themselves is what you remember. You don't remember the first words you said unless you said something hurtful and stupid. That's why we're trying to get the first dumb things out of the way. But generally, when people in a major event in your life seldom remember the words, they remember the people who were there for them.
Well, and it was important
that is a matter of how you were there for them. Pick the way that works best.
It was important for him to be with his boys. It was important for him to be with Crystal. And the way he got to be with her was the first Saturday after the stroke, she called him. She was the first one to call him and check on him. And that made a huge connection for him. And then the day of the memorial service, when we were driving up to Austin, we made sure we got there early enough for him to spend time with the boys alone, so that he would be able to, if he was going to cry. And Weston's coming out of his room to see if this camera is going to be on him because he doesn't have a shirt on.
There are some words that we'll remember.
Yeah,
when
here's
Crystal
the worst.
Called, I love you will always be remembered.
Yeah.
when you're talking to someone, because it's a connection beyond all connections. That's why God the love of connection connects you with God. All of love always does. So that's why it's so important in those particular situations, because that connects you in so many ways differently than any other words that you can put together. That her phone call
helped you tremendously. And then spending Saturday with the boys before going to the memorial service. Those two are totally separate, and yet those were some of your healing. So, okay, the 10 worst things, there's 11, now there's 12. We've already covered one with the leaders.
Here's things that are so stupid to say that they might affect somebody into the next round, later on.
Might slap you down when you say this
Number
to me.
1, at least she lived a long life. Many people die young. What does that even mean? I mean, we know what it means, but what is it really? I mean, in the situation, you're like, what? You're all of a sudden, you got weird ponderments.
Like, okay, well, how old was his mom when she passed? Well, she was 82. Oh, well, that was a pretty good long life.
She must have deserved to die.
It's like, but she could have had another 10 or 15 years. I mean, my Nana turned 96
in the same
on
weekend.
Monday. Yesterday, she turned 96. So, I mean, 82, 96, there's a lot of years in between.
And I got to tell you, in that situation, if you weren't in the right place, in the right mind, having gone from my mother's funeral, or in this case, memorial at 82, going to her Nana's at 96, if you weren't in the right place, you got to start asking yourself, well, why my mom? Why not 96? Oh my Lord, that's
right.
So you got to be in the right place.
Yeah.
Before you do that.
Number 2.
He or she is in a better place.
Okay, here's the deal.
Are they?
Right? You do. Don't always
Don't go there.
I mean, I'm just saying. Okay, go ahead.
What really matters, remember, they may not. She brought this on herself. I don't know who in the world would say something like that unless you're a hateful shrew.
I know. I am thinking, though, okay.
It's on the list, but I'm like.
The reason why when I read this list and I was coming up with all of these things, she brought this on herself, he brought it on himself, whatever. I was thinking of, there was somebody who passed away.
They smoked for 35 years. They brought it on themselves.
Well, no, I was thinking more of the drunk driver who gets out and gets in a wreck and kills himself because he's drunk driving.
They've done something stupid.
So they brought it on themselves.
Which
but the
implies
reality
they deserve
it. Nobody deserves it.
Right.
And it's a really bad thing to say. I mean, it's a cruel thing. So
there's a reason for everything. No kidding. Was there a reason for you to say that? I doubt it. All right.
But was there really a reason for her to pass other than it was God's timing?
Well, she's 82 years old.
Those are the words we're not supposed to be saying. Okay.
That's what it implies, I'm saying.
That's what I know. Okay, next one. See, we had fun with these because we got a lot of this garbage coming at us.
Aren't you over them yet? He has been dead for a while now. This is if you're talking about somebody who's grieving over somebody who's been dead for a while.
Like me. My mom passed 14 years ago.
You're not allowed to cry anymore or feel connection with your mother or any. It's just like, whatever. You're an idiot.
For someone who's lost a child,
here's
this next one.
My favorite one of all. This one's just, whoever says this should be punched right in the kisser. You can have another child. Oh, bam! I mean, nobody would say that, but they do. It's on the list. There's a lot of people that do. It actually comes out, and you just got to tell yourself, don't say this, so that way your face won't say such stupid things.
There are some dumb people out there. We're not sounding very Christian right now because we're talking about people who say dumb things.
She was such a good person. God wanted to be
wanted her to be with him.
Wanted her to be with him. See, that's what it does. That's what it does. I know how you feel. Don't ever say that. You don't.
Well, the reality is, we covered that in the things that you say to somebody who's grieving versus somebody who's not grieving. I lost my mom 14 years ago. You lost your mom 2 weeks ago. I still don't know how you feel. I know how I felt.
Right.
So there's no way I can tell you that because we're different
people. I know how I feel, and it's
moms.
pretty bad, so I can only imagine. I don't even want to go there.
I can tell you, I've got a friend that says she's watching. I don't know if she is now. She lost her mom this year, and the first thing that I wanted to say to her was, I understand. I understand the pain that I had. I don't understand what your pain is because our pain is different.
Right.
Our hurt is different. the relationships with their moms are different. So I don't really totally know how that person feels. I know what I went through.
Plus, we also have this idea that we all understand how everybody else is because we think we're all made so exactly the same way that your feelings are my feelings, that when you hurt a certain way, I know. No, it takes an adult to figure that one out.
Okay.
You don't. And then this one, really stupid. She did what she came here to do, and it was her time to go. So at any time I achieve anything great in my life, I have to be fearful of dropping dead because, I achieved something really... I'm dead. All right, I came, and I conquered, so I'm going to die. That's... Yeah, dumb. And then the last one, we don't even know what
this is not the last one.
Yeah, it's the second to last one. We don't even know what it's supposed to mean, but people say, be strong. As opposed to being weak, if I actually become a human being
because
and express myself. Because if we grieve, we're weak. That's like denying everything that's real. And
I do believe that actually allowing yourself to grieve and to cry and to fall apart is the strong version.
Yeah.
Versus turning it off. Because I think turning it off is really the weaker way to go.
It is. It's because you refuse to allow yourself to confront the issue.
Right.
It's Heidi.
Okay, this is the one that really ticked me off that somebody said to me when his mom passed. And I want to tell you, people, I'm really raw when we do these videos. I'm really super honest. I was so angry that after I read this, I went in there to him and was, I can't even begin to tell y'all the things that I had coming out of my mouth.
It's only 3 words. It only takes 3 words to do it.
So angry.
And those words are...
She's happy now.
She wasn't happy before.
And
she seemed happy. She was eating a cookie.
So I said to him... I said to him...
It was what kind of cookie?
Okay, can you just let me express myself? I couldn't believe that they said she's happy now. And I'm like, but she was happy. She was already happy. She found these amazing coconut cookies, and nobody else in the house liked them, and she bought 4 boxes of them and came home and was eating her cookies when she had the stroke. But besides that, she had that whole day with her daughter, earlier in the week with grandkids. We called her with the great-grands doing FaceTime. We were going to come see her. We had actually talked about coming to see her for Easter on that same day. I texted him and said, you want to go see your mom for Easter? We could take her to church.
Could have been there.
He said no.
Could have been there.
That night, she had the stroke, and guess where we were for Easter? At the hospital. But I don't like the she's happy now thing, because let me tell you something. She was happy already.
Don't get us wrong, guys. We know what you think you're saying. We're just telling you what we're hearing.
Okay. When I believe his mom was a Christian, wholeheartedly. I do believe that she's in heaven. Is she happier?
Yes.
And is she just rejoicing at Jesus' feet and having herself a good time, saying,
she is.
See, I told you so, it's real? Yes. Yes, she is. But that didn't mean she wasn't happy here. That's all I'm saying. So, anyway.
It just brings on complex thoughts. That only compound the problem.
That one was my...
if it's fresh.
That was my anger. That was my anger trigger, was when somebody told me she's happy now. And I'm just like, that doesn't even make sense to me. Now, I get it if somebody's had a troubled life.
Yes.
But you still just stick to the top 10 ones that we said. I'm sorry for your loss. Sit with them. Just tell them you know you don't know how they feel, but you want to be there for them. Take them some food. The other thing, I know we've gone on for a really long time, but one more thing that I was going to cover.
It's going to be our fastest one.
And it's not. It's going to be our longest one. What time is it?
It's 10:11.
Oh, my word. We're gone on too long.
Right, we're sorry.
This is the last part that I was going to do that I wanted to cover, and that was the memorial service that we had for his mom. Was very... basic. I'm trying to word it to where I'm not putting it down. Sure. It was just kind of like a family barbecue. And we rented the clubhouse in the neighborhood, and
informal.
Very informal. The grandkids, which were my kids and that age, and the great grandkids, put out tables and chairs. There was barbecue that was catered and it was put out. and everybody just served themselves. And then Dad kind of started talking, and then he called on a few people to talk. And it was really kind of an awkward, bizarre, kind of weird memorial service. And then we got to watch a video of her life and all of this stuff. But there was still never really any closure. But the part that he and I talked about was, and this is what I wanted to get to before we close and pray.
That's where we get to the what really matters part.
I was very happy that she was surrounded by her children and her grandchildren and her great-grandchildren.
Absolutely.
That there was a huge community from that. And yet I was still shocked at the no community, because they weren't involved in anything. I mean, at this age, and she wasn't involved in a church, and there was nobody bringing them meals. You know, I'm used to, because I've grown up in church and I've been in church, if somebody passes, we take care of the family for a couple of weeks by taking food. The day of the memorial service, there would have been, your church family would have provided the food and things, but there was no sense of community that way. The family itself all came together. Yes. Well, it was, Elite. It was. That's the part that was nice.
I can actually read that now.
Well, it's because we've got it close enough. It was a wonderful time to remember. There was a few tears. Drayton cried like crazy. Scott, his brother, cried. Sawyer, one of the other great-grands, cried. And it's funny because his sister's kids are all almost my age, but not quite. And so they're the same cousin level as my kids, which are, 20 years younger than them, 15 years younger than them, 18 years younger. So you had this spattering of different ages, and it was really nice, and it was nice to hear some of the memories. And the part that was also nice is, with the memories, there was the good and the bad. It was real. It was human. It was... Mom
they asked me to say something, and she said, like, of all people, you had to say something that was negative.
He didn't mean it to be negative, but it was a negative statement, but it wasn't really negative. It's a funny story, and it's one of his and his mom's favorite. In fact, when we were there probably the last time, y'all joked about it, and she's like, well, let's go sit on it, and I'll do it again.
She would.
And I'll knock you off that tailgate again, no problem,
Don't
that kind of
Mom.
stuff. Yeah, just don't talk back. So anyway, it was kind of funny, but I'm just saying, make sure you have a community around you. Keep your parents with a community so that there's, so that they feel, so that there is an honor and a love and an outpouring for them. That's the only thing that I wished that I felt like we didn't see as much of that I wanted.
And in wrapping it up, I noticed when we went to this memorial, I knew that it was primarily just going to be family. My dad had one of his close West Point friends that was there for him. But when you experienced it and you went through it all, like she said, we had an entire 82-year-old life that touched people. Mm-hmm. How many people? Now, there was a variety of people throughout the years when we moved around we don't have contact with anymore. There's probably hundreds of people that she impacted in her life that very well could have been in that room that day that would probably remember her in some capacity, but they're still not involved in her life. So I give you that. That is a portion of that was not able to be found.
Right.
But when you get down to the end, you had 82 years, and you have a room full of primarily just your family. You've got to reach out and ask yourself, this is a threefold what really matters issue. What really matters, of course, is family. That is so important, but it's not the most important thing in terms of it being your immediate family. How many people have you impacted in your life? How much have you, and that's what we talked about, and she brings me to point on a regular basis. Your purpose in life on this planet is the Great Commission, is to impact other people's lives. When you die, wouldn't you like to have thousands of people, of which only hundreds could get in, to show the impact that you had in their life by spreading something that's so important, which would be God's Word, that has impacted their life, that
because
you were
brought
used
Him glory
in a vessel that brings God glory, that when they show up, they say, thank you for honoring God's Word in the Great Commission and bringing His Word to me, and I can spread that to my family and save so many people from an an eternity of suffering,
Right.
so that true joy fills the room as you realize that everybody in this room of like accord is recognizing true joy of this person's 82-year experience. My mother kind of had a little of that, wished I would have more, so let it impact us. Let us go to this particular thing, not feel sorry for my mother because of that relationship, but to learn from that particular experience and to allow ourselves to grow. Make a difference. Do something out of your comfort zone. Bring more people into your life. I was pretty content with just whoever and whatever. I recognize now that's not the fullest extent of life. That's a limited life. You have a purpose beyond that. Impact people. Make a difference. Step out. And ultimately, what really matters, all peers up, your family, the people that you, because you can extend your family. Your family isn't just the people you're blood related to you.
I have so much family that's not my blood.
That you have brought in under that umbrella that you trust and care for about like your family, and then God. There's the umbrella.
Okay.
And that's the reason why we didn't feel the closure that we wanted to have, is because we didn't find that direct connection with the true and the one true God and the great I am.
Well, there was no prayer, no scripture reading. There was nothing other than the family remembering, which was
no
great.
Structure
I'm not putting
in
that
the
down.
way that God would have had it for us to be able to know that it's all tied up in a nice, neat, eternal package. So
okay. So we've gone on way longer than what we're supposed to.
I'm glad you're still here.
Yeah, me too. It's time for us to pray, and he has me marked down for the prayer.
You're the prayer person.
This time, probably because it's okay if I cry, because, it's what I do. But I'm actually going to pray. I'm going to pray, for comfort and healing over, broken hearts that have lost, and because it's a continual thing. It doesn't matter how long the person's been gone that you're grieving. You're to me, there's never really an end to that grieving process. God just gets us to a new level, and that's okay. And then I'm also going to just pray that we use our lives to bring him glory and to make an impact in our communities, because it's like the little rock on the water. You make that ripple, and then all the ripples, and it goes all the way across. Right. And so if you just do yours,
be a ripple.
So we just want to be a ripple. So that's going to be my prayer. And I apologize that we took this on for so long, but this was a big deal, and it actually will probably be part of our healing process. The fact that we got to talk about it, because and we got to share it, is because this is going to be part of our healing. The fact that we just get to share it with somebody else and say, this is what we've learned. And hopefully other people that go through grieving will be able to learn from it as well. So y'all share this if it did help you, like and share our stuff and help us to get known as well, because we do want to help people. And we are pretty raw, and we share, just who we are. There's nothing special. It's just us. So, Father, I thank you and I praise you, and I just ask that you would bring healing to those that are grieving. I pray that you bring comfort and peace and strength. And I ask, Lord, that you would just use us to bring your word, to spread the gospel to others, Father God. Help us to plant the seeds in our community, to be the stone that makes the ripple that just goes throughout the community and our surrounding areas, Father God. Use our lives to impact our world, our nation, Father God. I just pray, I thank you, Lord, that you have shown us a few things for the grieving process that we could share. And I thank you that your son, I'm just going to go straight into the salvation. I thank you for salvation, Father. I thank you for sending your son. And I ask that you would just be with us in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, so I just really was hit by the fact that I'm going to end this with a salvation prayer. And it's just overwhelming me, so I'm not going to end it without doing it. If you're watching this video and you don't even know if you're saved, or maybe you are, you need to recommit, whatever. I'm just going to say a prayer, and Todd's going to repeat, and that would be y'all repeat with him. And we're just going to do this prayer real quick. I feel like it's very important because I think one of the big things that would concern me is knowing that one of my family members that didn't have the opportunity to do that. Father, thank you for sending Jesus.
Thank you for sending Jesus.
I thank you for making a way.
I thank you for making a way.
Please forgive me.
Please forgive me
of all of my sins.
Of all of my sins.
Forgive me of my past.
Forgive me of my past.
Come into my life.
Come into my life.
Make it new.
Make it new.
Help me to live.
Help me to live.
The way your word says.
The way your word says.
I thank you.
I thank you.
For a fresh start.
For a fresh start.
In Jesus' name.
In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen.
Okay, so I wanted to do the salvation prayer because I felt like it was really important. And, share that with other people because salvation is the biggest thing that we have that we need to get out there. So thank you, Nancy. Love you. And we'll talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.
Bye.